President Trump looking to clarify his controversial comments with Vladimir Putin, and he said he now accepts U.S. intelligence conclusions that the Russians did, in fact, meddle in our election. The question now, is that enough to silence his critics? As you know, just about everybody has condemned the president yesterday and today, the media, Democrats, and even most Republicans, especially when he said that he believed Putin when the Russian president told him they didn't mess with the 2016 race.
People came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be.
Yeah, I see a bunch of reasons. It's neither here nor there today. The president claimed that he simply misspoke. Listen.
The sentence should have been, and I thought it would be maybe a little bit unclear on the transcript or unclear on the actual video. The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be Russia. Sort of a double negative. So you can put that in, and I think that probably clarifies things pretty good.
Yes, why it wouldn't not be Russia. And the president went on to clear up claims that he doesn't take his intel team seriously.
I have full faith and support for America's great intelligence agencies, always had. And I have felt very strongly that while Russia's actions had no impact at all on the outcome of the election, let me be totally clear in saying that, and I've said this many times, I accept our intelligence community's conclusion.
Very good, but will this be enough to put the controversy behind him? Joining me now, Florida Republican Congressman and member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Ron DeSantis is here. As you know, he is also running for governor in the Sunshine State of Florida. He's got the support of the president. Congressman, I will ask you, were his comments today that clarified what he claimed was simple misspeech, was it enough to put this all behind him?
Well, I think there's going to be some people here, Kennedy, as you know, who are never going to let him put anything behind him. But I think with the whole Russia thing, things have been conflated a lot of times intentionally by the media and the Democrats. I mean, you have the issue of did the Russians meddle? And I think the answer to that question is yes. I think obviously the president has clarified his position on that. But then did it have any effect on the election? To me, obviously it did not. And then was there any Trump-Russia collusion? Obviously, no. They've been investigating for 2 years and haven't found anything. So I think having those things clear, so when the president is saying that this investigation should stop, he's talking about the collusion angle, but he does, have confidence in people like Dan Coates. So I do think he clarified that.
I think you're absolutely right there, and I think it's really important to pull those things apart because there's a big difference between Russia interfering with the election and actually changing votes versus Russia, buying ads and trying to sow chaos and meddle with the election in that way. And there's a difference even among those two with collusion, which is members of the Trump campaign and administration working with Russia to somehow change the result. I think two of those three things didn't happen. The president also needs to be clearer here. And do you think some of this stems from his frustration that when people talk about Russian interference in the election, it delegitimizes his presidency? I almost said pregnancy.
Of course, that's what his critics are doing. Think about it, Kennedy. It's a legitimate issue what they did in the cyber realm. But there have been so many things that have been much worse lately against our country. Remember when China did the cyber attack against the Office of Personnel Management? They got millions of files with the security clearance and everything. Very sensitive information there could be used for blackmail. That was a direct cyber attack on the U.S. government, and that was a one-day story here in Washington. Why? Because it didn't fit a media narrative. Obama was president. They didn't want to use it to tarnish him. So it is true. The media uses this over and over again to try to undermine him. I mean, Trump and Putin had a 2-hour meeting. They discussed presumably a lot of important issues. What's the first question that they get asked by the American media is about the meddling and the interference. And again, I'm not saying it's not an issue, but what about what's going on in Syria? What about what's been going on in Ukraine? What about Crimea?
Yes, what's going on in Syria, Ukraine, and Crimea? Those are all great, valid questions, which, shows that Vladimir Putin is an authoritarian dictator who will stop at nothing to access more power and land. That makes him very dangerous because he uses subversive and deadly means in order to meet those goals. That's fine. That's also another reason that I think there are people within the president's party and within the security apparatus within this country who would like to see him be a little bit more forceful with his language toward Putin, as he was with Kim Jong-un. And it was his unpredictability, even the president's greatest foes will claim, that brought North Korea to the diplomatic table. So why aren't we seeing the same sort of toughness and sternness with Putin? The whole thing seems weird.
Well, there have been some areas where Trump has been much tougher than Obama. For example, Obama refused to provide Ukraine with lethal aid to defend themselves against Putin's aggression. Trump has been willing to do that. A lot of Republicans, we supported that. A lot of the Democrats didn't when Obama was president. Now they're singing a different tune. So that he does have a story to tell, but I would agree with you and just say this. Vladimir Putin, when they were going back and forth, they kind of had the earphones in for the interpreters to translate. When America is acting with strength, Putin doesn't need an interpreter for that. He will realize that, and that's the best way to deter him from doing more nefarious things. The reason why he did so much with Obama was because Barack Obama was weak, and I think if the president stands strong, that will help us.
If you're saying that President Obama was weak and he's the one who capitulated to Iran and strategic patience in North Korea, made the world less safe, and doing absolutely nothing with Russia, also exacerbated, this trifecta of bad situations and three actors who are working together for nefarious means. If Obama was weak, the president needs to be stronger here. Do you agree with that?
So I think what he did with Kim Jong-un, he exerted a lot of pressure on them.
We're not talking about Kim Jong-un, though. We're talking about Russia specifically, and he's not being tough enough with Putin.
I think he should do a similar approach with Russia, so that when you have a summit like that, you're doing it from a position of strength where you've turned the screws on Russia. He has done it a little bit, but I think if we do it a little bit more, I think that will be helpful.
Doing it more, doing it overseas, and doing it standing next to Vladimir Putin, that would be a successful moment and would certainly help your party in the midterms. I know the president has helped you in your polling in Florida. You are now 17 points ahead with likely voters there in the Sunshine State. Do you feel that you have to support the president blindly in order to maintain those numbers?
No. In fact, what I do is I support the president because I want him to succeed.
Yes.
If I have a difference of opinion, what I do, I don't try to flame him publicly like some of these Republicans. I'll call him and tell him, here's where I'm coming from, and he appreciates that. But that's the difference between being constructive and trying to be destructive. I don't want to be destructive.
You
don't
want to be Jeff Flake? Jeff Flake's never going to be governor of anything.
Exactly.
Except for the sitting around doing nothing club. All right, Congressman, thank you very much for your time.